G'day, I'm Gary. I live in Southern California and this is my rebar stake. This is my favourite way to suspend, stake or train vining plants. I use it all the time, and what I'll do is I'll show you how I use it, then I'll come back, I'll show you how easy it is to make. It's a very simple thing to make, it's very inexpensive, and this will last you a lifetime. I was just sitting next to one of my self-watering wicking ponds, and on either side of it I have some Malabar spinach growing. So that's suspended by the piece of old water pipe that I've got strung across the top of my building there. So Malabar spinach really likes it. It will just grow straight up the rebar. Over here I've got some purple yams or ubes. I've been growing them for a number of years on these hooks. So I've got those suspended again with some more water pipe that goes across the top there. It's very simple to string up. The ube really likes growing on it. I don't have to really train it, it'll just train itself. Once it starts coiling, it'll head skyward. Over here I planted some more Malabar spinach. This is in full sun. It prefers to have partial shade, so this one's not doing so well. I think it's dying off. Again, I used the rebar. I made some hooks attached to the top, and I strung, in this case, an old bed frame. So I used the old bed frame for the trellis, and I used the rebar for the support. So that's another way I use it. I've been using the rebar in a lot of different ways. So over here I've been using it straight, so the vines just grow straight up the rebar itself. But further into my garden, I've been using it to support my trellising wire. In this area I've put some trellising wire, which is some fencing that I've strung up on the rebar. I've been using it to support my pepinos. Now the pepinos are normally a rambling vining plant. If you put it on a trellis, you can train it to grow up. So I've used this to support pepinos and other melons. So the way I've got this set up, I've got a piece of rebar coming down from the rafters, goes down to the first netting. Then from there it continues on to the second layer. So I've got that growing all along here. I've also used it to support different plants, such as the tree collard. So the tree collard has a tendency to get top heavy and fall over. So I've supported it by using a rebar hook, attached it to the rafters and brought it down. So that keeps the tree collard vertical. The other way I've been using it has been when I've been transplanting larger plants that have overgrown Robbie's garden. So this is a purple sprouting broccoli. It's a couple of years old, and rather than compost it, I decided to move it into my garden. I created a rebar hook here that will support it from the rafters again. So that'll stay there for as long as it needs. Because once you remove them from their existing place, you don't have a strong root system. So this will allow it to stay vertical until it develops a nice strong root system. Done the same thing here. I believe this is dazzling blue kale. And I took this out of Robbie's garden as well. So I've got another piece of rebar that's attached to the rafters up above. So that's another way that I've been using the rebar and making hooks. So my garden in different places, I've been creating different uses for the rebar. To make my hooks, I use 3/8 of an inch rebar. I take a hacksaw and a tape measure to the hardware store. I cut it into shorter lengths so that I can get it into the back of my truck. For this project, I needed 3 equal pieces cut from the 20-foot length. That works out to be 6'8". So I cut them down. I loaded them into the back of my truck. To bend the rebar, it's simply a matter of getting some old pipe, sliding it over. To make the hook on the end, I take another piece of pipe, I slide that over that end. Now that gives me enough leverage to bend it. Because it's so thin, I'm able to just fold it over fairly easily. If I was using thicker rebar, I would need longer pieces of pipe, and that would give me the leverage to bend thicker pieces. I've done that. So it's just a matter of sliding the pipe off. And now I've got a stake or a hook that's ready to go. This year I'm going to grow some of my purple yams or ubes in these totes. So I started these plants in my nursery, and once they started to vine up, I set them up along here. Now to get them started on the rebar, it's just a matter of twisting them around. You just have to be careful not to break the growing tip. And once you get them started, they will find their own way up the rebar. Now at the end of the season, it's very simple to clean up. I just take the stakes down, and it's just a matter of running the old growth off the stakes, and you've got it nice and clean. Now these I can store or move out of the way, and then I can get into my garden and work in my garden. This would be perfect for growing beans or anything else. You could cut them to whatever length you want. Sometimes I've joined them together. I've found scrap pieces and I've used wire and different methods to join them together. So if you can find some construction site, you might be able to find shorter pieces of these. The current price for a 20-foot length of 3/8 rebar in our area is around $5. So each of these hooks have cost me about $1.66 a piece. So that's economical. These will last me a lifetime. I don't have to replace them. What I like to do is doing things once. So anyhow, that's a simple video on how I use rebar for my trellising. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And with that, thanks for watching, and don't forget to eat what you grow.